dollars. It makes a difference to us because 1/4 of our exports goes to US market. And the final sections will focus on geopolitical developments. Generally, it is one section where we just look at the updates, what's happening in the rest of the world. Looking at India's trade, from April to December, the India's total trade increased by 7%, the exports by 6.6%, and import by 7.29%. So overall, leading to a trade deficit of 78 billion. The next is the India's trade analysis, and that includes the composition of exports and imports. When it comes to the top export categories, we find that mineral fuels, electrical machinery, nuclear reactors. These are the general products in the top export groups, and that shows the continued stability in India's export basket. Electrical machinery exports has actually significantly increased. It's 40.8%, boosted by increase in imports of smartphone. In fact, between April to December, the smartphone exports increased from 4 billion to 7 billion, which is a positive side. There are few product categories which show significant growth. It's close to 200%, such as exports of aircrafts, spacecrafts, and parts. When it comes to imposition of imports, the major imports include mineral fuels, as it is. It has been always the case. Quartz and precious stones, electrical machinery, and nuclear reactors. Quartz and precious stone imports climbed by close to 19%, with higher influence of uncut and industrial diamonds. So we find there is a bit of import content when it comes to India's exports, because gems, jewelry, and precious stones, it is one of the top exports, and also it is part of top imports. When it comes to India's trade analysis, country-wise, it is the US, UAE. Yeah. Country-wise, as usual, US, UAE, Netherlands, Singapore, UK, and China, they continue to be India's leading export markets, comprising 42% of total exports. China, UAE, Russia, and US, they are the leading import markets for India. Region-wise, North America, European Union, West Asia, and ASEAN, they comprise 61% of total India's total exports. Northeast Asia, West Asia, and ASEAN account for 53% of India's total imports. We find certain developments like exports to West Asia, ASEAN grew steadily, with notable imports both from Latin America and West Asia. So there are a bit of diversification when it comes to India's exports as well as imports sourcing. FTA partners, there is a good news. What we see is the exports is having much higher growth compared to the imports from the FTA partners. So the trade deficit with the FTA partners, which was a cause of concern few years back, it is no more. We are reducing the trade deficit with this. Now we come to technology intensive exports. This is one of the new dimensions we have added to the trade watch quarterly, where we are looking at India's technology intensive exports. By international standards, generally we have 4 types of technology intensive exports: low technology, low technology, medium high technology, and high technology. Here there are positive news for us, because what we see over 10 years, the medium high technology and also high technology, they are having much higher growth rate, 5.8 or 10.6 respectively. And these growth rates are much higher compared to the growth rate of these segments all over the world. It is another thing also that though we are doing well on an average compared to the world growth, still when it comes to the world averages in high technology exports and medium high technology exports, so though we are improving, we need to catch up with the global averages, and our share in the world in these categories are relatively lower. So it's kind of an opportunity for all of us. Another aspect we are focusing this time here on digital delivered services, and India is doing very well. In fact, if you look at export growth comparison, it is the digital delivered services that is rising much faster compared to the merchandise and overall services exports. And if you look at the growth rate, India's growth rate in digital delivered services, it's almost close to the top countries in this segment, such as China and Singapore. In fact, actually, India's digital delivered services exports doubled between 2014 to 2024, amounting to 269 billion, and this is the segment which is increasing much faster. In fact, developing and least developed countries are having higher share, and so it shows the kind of opportunity we have in DDX. The next we go to the segment that is India-US trade, bilateral trade, which was 123 billion in 2024, having a surplus close to 38 billion for India. And 2016 to 2024, India's exports to US grew at 7.5% compared to overall India's exports growth of 5.2%, and in fact it's much higher than the world growth of world exports. Exports composition, when it comes to India's exports to US, major exports are electrical machinery, pharmaceuticals, natural and cultured pods, and precious metals and mechanical appliances. These are the kind of compositions of India's exports to US. Key competitors to us in US market are China, Canada, Mexico, and some of the European countries. In fact, China, Canada, and Mexico, they export almost 50% of US's total imports. The total imports of US is $3,300 billion. So $1,440 or $50 actually comes from only these three countries. So we are competing with China, Canada, and Mexico in the US market. The next and the most important part is how do we really evaluate this recent US trade policies and their implications on India's exports. Here it's a bit complicated, so let me put it in very simple words. This is how it is. Now, starting from early April till 10th of July, US has imposed, there are a lot of ups and downs, but US has imposed more than 23 countries with the new tariff rates. The first thing they did is 10% basic tariff on every import that is coming into the US. Then they started imposing tariffs like 25% on Mexico, 30% on China, 20% Vietnam, like that. There are 23 countries, they have finalized or announced the new tariff rates. Then there are few sectors they have exempted. There are few sectors which are subject to additional tariffs like steel and aluminum, 50%, automobiles. So there are a lot of calculation actually goes into this. This is how we do it. We take care of the exemptions for the sectors. We take care of the additional tariffs on specific sectors. We take care of the existing tariff before US President Trump or what you call in the previous regime. Then the base tariffs plus the additional tariffs. And then we compare the tariff as of today imposed on India. The new tariffs on all other countries those who are exporting to the US market vis-a-vis the tariffs imposed on Indian exports to the US market. And we have considered till 10th of July, including the new imposition of tariffs on Canada. We have not considered EU and Mexico, which was announced that 1 day before. But more or less, in fact, if we consider those going forward, it would be much better position actually for India. So this is how we have compared. Everything is kind of taken